Well, here we are again. The last top 10 video we did, the rangefinder video, was a roaring success, so I thought we would finish off the year by continuing on that with my top 10 favourite SLRs. I have selected my top 10 favourite SLRs, not necessarily the best top 10 SLRs, but these are my favourites. The list is entirely subjective, it's my choices, what makes them tick for me. I'm sure that there will be people in the comments who say you missed so-and-so camera and all of this. Feel free to comment, tell me your favourites, but these are my choices and them's the breaks. So before we get into it, we need to explain the point system again. So we'll run through how we are going to grade these cameras. Ho, 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 Merry Christmas from your jolly Uncle JCH. As you can see, I'm overloaded with wonderful things for Christmas, and I would love nothing more than to climb down your chimney and dump my bulging sack. You want a camera? You can hit the website down below, japancamera.hunter.com, and if you want to look as good as jolly Uncle JCH, then you can always grab some apparel by hitting the link as well. Thank you to one and all. Have a Merry Christmas and be cool to one another. So let's have a quick refresher on the point system. It's based on a few metrics. The first ones are based on 10 points, and the one we have to start with is range, which means what does the camera come with, the accessories, the lenses, the availability, all of these things that make a camera system. Next up we have build quality. How is the camera made? Is it cheap? Is it well made? Is it solid? Is it flimsy? Next up we have usability. This is also for 10 points. Usability, is it well designed? Is it ergonomically easy to use? Are the functions easy to get to? The next series of metrics are going to be for 5 points. Now we're going to have price. Price is based on obviously the price of the camera. How much is it? How much of the price is appreciating or depreciating? Is it an investment value? Next up for 5 points we have styling. How does it look? I mean, they are beautiful objects. We should be looking at how they look. Is it aesthetically pleasing? Next up, 5 points, serviceability. Is it easy to be repaired or not? Can it be repaired? In some cases, cameras can't be repaired anymore. And the last one we have is status. Does it have street cred? Does it look cool? 5 points, and that will bring us up to a total of 50 points. We will top them up at the end and see what we get for each camera and see who the winner is. So we better get started. Right, first up we have one of my old favourites, I think a lot of people's favourite, the Nikon F3. Yes, the Nikon F3, absolutely astounding camera. That famous red stripe designed by Giorgetto Giugiaro, and one of a legacy camera for Nikon. You know, it really made a huge amount of difference. So we better get off into the points. First up, range. Now, I'm scoring this one high, 9 points for the range. Nikon has an absolutely massive range of accessories. The only reason I didn't give it a 10 is because you can't properly use some of the older lenses on it, they won't meter. But otherwise a 9. Build quality. This camera also gets a 9. This thing is built like a tank. It is said that the bearings in these are so good that 200,000 actuations is just not even an issue for them. They are solid. I dropped one of these and it just hurt my foot. That's all it did. Next up we have usability. 7. I didn't give it a higher score because there are some things that are not so great on it. It doesn't have the higher shutter speeds of some of the other Nikons, and it can be a bit awkward to use sometimes, but it is a very dependable camera. So 7 I think is a good score for it. Price wise we're going to give it 4. This camera is still relatively inexpensive to get. There hasn't been a huge rush on the F3, and there's so many of them that you can pick them up for good prices. Styling, I mean, it's an F3, it looks amazing. So I'm gonna give it a 4. It does look great, it looks purposeful. Serviceability, again, this one gets a 4. These are still serviceable, there's lots of people repairing them. If you have one that's broken, it shouldn't be an issue to have it repaired. And status, we're going to go with 5. It's an F3. Everybody knows what you've got around your neck when you're wearing one of these. This thing is cool. It has cred. Right then, time to total it up, see what we've got. So we had 9 for the range, 9 for the build quality, 7 for usability, price 4, styling 4, serviceability 4, and status 5. That brings us to a nice round total of 42 points. Very well done. Good show from the Nikon F3. Next on the list, we have the indomitable Nikon F6. The big boy, the daddy. The end of times for Nikon's professional film SLR cameras. This was the pinnacle of what they made. The Nikon F6, outstanding camera, again designed by Giorgetto Giugiaro. It is, you can see the red on it. Wonderfully built piece of kit. It's got possibly everything you could need on an SLR camera. So let's get into the points for this one. Range. I gave this one 8, and so you might say, why did you give it less than the F3? Well, because it doesn't have as many accessories as the F3. It was a newer camera, it came later, and its life was much shorter than the F3, so it just didn't have the time to put stuff out. It's still got a great range though, and you can still use a lot of lenses on it. Build quality, 7. It is solid, but it does have some caveats, and that's because it's got electronic bits in it which can break. Yes, it's weather sealed, but you've got to be careful with one of these. You can't start chucking it about. Usability, 6. I gave it 6. I think others might give it a higher value just because it's got too many functions. It's just got so much stuff on it that it becomes almost overwhelming. Okay. Price, 2. Since Nikon announced that they were discontinuing these cameras, the prices went absolutely bonkers. Triple, quadruple in some cases that of what you would have paid a year previously, which is a bit silly. Styling, I'm going to give it a 3 because it does kind of look like a digital camera. It looks cool, but it does kind of look like a digital camera, and yeah, so a bit less. Serviceability, 3. You can still have these serviced by Nikon, although it can be expensive and it won't be forever. And once Nikon stop doing that, there'll be very few people who can do it because of the electronics. And status. Status-wise, I give it a 3, and that's because it is a very cool camera. There's no doubt about that. It is a very cool camera, and people do go, whoa dude, is that an F6? So yeah, but not quite as cool as the F3 in my opinion. So, let's total them up and see what we got. We got 8 for the range, we got 7 for the build quality, 6 for the usability, 2 for the price, 3 for the styling, 3 for the serviceability, and 3 for the status, which brings us to a grand total of 32. A pretty strong showing from the F6, not bad at all if you ask me. Number 3 on our list is the Nikon FM3A. What can you say about this camera? This camera is the absolute pinnacle of what Nikon did with a manual, fully manual SLR. It showed all of the things that they had learned over the years, and they packed it into this tiny, absolutely incredible package. This camera does it all, singing, dancing, yet it is so simple. So we better get into the scoring, see how we go. Range, 9. Again, very high because Nikon has a huge range of accessories and things that go with it. The lenses, there's so many that you can put on this camera, but it doesn't quite have everything. And some of them can be quite hard to find. Build quality, given this one a 9, it is very well made. It is solid, it feels like it's been put together fantastically. It is a tough camera, it just keeps on going. Usability, I gave this one a 10. The usability on this camera, I think, is better than that on some of the other Nikon cameras. Everything is within reach because of its stature. It is a smaller camera, it is easy to grab. Price-wise, I'm going to give this one a 3, and that's because the prices for them have steadily been going up, and it's been getting more expensive to have one of these. They're still relatively reasonable, but they are getting higher. Styling, I'm going to give it a 3. It doesn't have the flair of some of the older Nikons, you know. It looks a lot more plain, a lot more simple, so I gave it a 3. Serviceability, 3. It is still very serviceable, though there are things that will not be able to be serviced in the very near future, so you have to make sure of that. And status, it's a 3. It's very cool amongst camera nerds, but maybe other people don't really know what it is. So, let's top them up see what we got. So we got a range, we got 9, build quality we got a 9, usability 10, price 3, styling 3, serviceability 3, and status 3. That gives us a grand total of, drum roll please, 40 points, which is a stellar performance from this camera. Not as high as I expected, but still very, very good. Well done, FM3A. On to number 4 in our festive roundup of my favourite SLRs, and this is the Leica R8. Sometimes known or called the Hunchback of Solms due to its interesting design, interesting stature. It is a big, chunky camera, but it is also an extremely capable camera, so let's see how it did. Right, now, R8, range. Range, I gave it a 5. Pretty low score, really. The reason for that is it has these incredible lenses, but they are so expensive and hard to get. The accessories are very hard to find, so it doesn't have a huge range. It doesn't have a lot of stuff that you can use on it easily. So it's a 5. Build quality, it's a 6. This camera was built well, but it is still relatively fragile in some areas, and you do have to be a bit careful with it. It's like a high maintenance sports car. The usability, I gave it an 8. That's a really high score, and the reason for that is it is ergonomically incredible. Everything is exactly where you need it. Your fingers can find everything without you even having to look. It's just there. It is a dream to use this camera. Price-wise, 2. Prices are going up, prices for all Leica stuff is going up, and prices for the glass for these things, it's absolutely bonkers now that the cine crowd has got into it. Styling, 2. It's a love it or hate it. It's big, it's chunky, it's a hefty camera, and not a lot of people like that, so it's got a relatively low score. Serviceability 2. These cameras can be hard to service. There's not many places that do it and do it properly, and servicing can be expensive for them. And last one, status 2. A lot of people don't realize that Leica actually made SLRs, and they made damn good SLRs too, so it's not all that cult statusy, but amongst true hard photo nerds it is, but other people maybe not so much. So let's see how the R8 did. Let's total up the R8 scores and see where we come in. Range, we got 5. Build quality, we got 6. Usability, an absolutely brilliant 8. Price, it was let down, 2. Styling, again, 2. Serviceability, let it down, 2. And status, 2, which brings us to a grand total of 27 points. I expected better from the R8, but it's still not bad. I still love it, and it's still a camera I use, so well done, but try harder. Okay, the next camera on the list, we don't actually have one at the moment. It's the Contax Aria, which is a fantastic little SLR. Tiny, the smallest SLR, in fact, smallest and lightest that was ever made. Very advanced, the most advanced one from Contax, had all kinds of features. So let's get into the scoring. Okay, range. Now I'm going to give this one a 5, and the reason for that is there are not that many lenses for it, and there are not that many accessories for the camera. The camera wasn't around for a very long time. Contax didn't have the ability or time to build a range for it. Build quality, 6. It was built by Cosina, designed by Porsche, brilliant, but over time these things, because they're electronic, become more susceptible to wear, so it's not going to last as long. So the build quality is good, but it's not fantastic. Usability, 7. This camera is very easy to use, it's very intuitive. It doesn't have all of the functions that you might want, but it does have a lot, so I'm going to give it a 7. Price-wise, 3. These cameras are still reasonably priced, unless you're talking about special editions, and then things get expensive. The main problem is the lenses. The lenses are expensive for these now. Styling, I'm going to give it a 5 because the camera looks cool. It is small, it is funky, it's a cool looking camera. Serviceability, unfortunately this is where it slips up. This one's only going to get a 2 because they are hard to service, and if you can find a place that will service them, you are going to be paying quite a lot of money to have it done. Last one, status. It's cool, but it's not that cool. It gets a 2. So let's see how we did, and let's total up the points for the Contax Aria. We had range 5, build quality 6, usability 7, price 3, styling 5, serviceability 2, and status 2. That brings us to a grand total of 30 points. Not bad for the smallest camera, SLR camera that Contax ever made. Okay, next on our list, another camera which we don't currently have, but we have done a video about, so you can see it if you follow the link up there. The Hasselblad 501cm, which was, some people consider, the greatest mechanical camera that Hasselblad ever made. It's like the FM3 for Hasselblad. It's their showcase of their expertise on a mechanical camera. So, let's get into the scoring for this beautiful beast. Range, we have 9. Basically, this camera can use just about everything in the Hasselblad ecosystem, so fantastic, it does it all. Brilliant camera. Build quality 10. These things are built like tanks. They are absolutely wonderful. They feel it, you can feel them when you use them. They just feel so solid, so dependable. Usability 6. Does take a bit of getting used to using it. They're not easy to use. If you've not used a waist level viewfinder before, you're going to have a few moments where you're trying to figure out which way you're going. Price 2. These are becoming expensive. In fact, they're becoming really expensive, kind of silly expensive. Styling, we've got 5 on this one. 5 points, it looks cool. It's a Hasselblad, that profile, it just looks cool, right? Serviceability 4, they are still serviceable. There's plenty of places that are still servicing them. You don't have to go to Hasselblad to have it done. There's lots of capable engineers, there's lots of parts, so you don't really need to worry too much about future serviceability for this camera. And status, I mean, it's a Hasselblad, it's got cachet, it looks great, it is a great camera. People know you're pretty serious about it when you've got a Hasselblad in your hands. So, let's total them up. See where we got with the Hasselblad. We got range 9, build quality 10, usability 6, price 2, styling 5, serviceability 4, and status 4, which brings us up to a total of 40 points. 40 points, that's putting it up in the top echelons, and that means it's a really solid performance from an amazing camera. Well done, Hasselblad. Next up, we have an important camera to me. It's not a great SLR in terms of the grand scheme of things, but it is a great SLR to me because it's my dad cam. It's the Minolta XG-1. It's not even the best camera that Minolta made, not even by a long shot, but it's the best camera to me because it belonged to my dad and now it belongs to me. So, this camera taught me everything. Let's get started on the grading for this one. Range, 5 points. It's got a great range of lenses, reasonably good range of accessories, but a lot of them hard to find now and most of them are probably broken. So, build quality. This was never intended to be a pro camera, it was a consumer camera, so it was built in a consumer camera way. It's not that tough, it is pretty fragile. In fact, this one is barely working. Usability. I'm going to give it a high score of 7 just because I know how to use this camera with my eyes closed. That doesn't mean everybody else does, but I do because I've used it so much and I absolutely love it. Price, 5. If this camera did break and I had to replace it, I wouldn't, but if I did, it would cost me nothing. These are so cheap now, you can pick these up for nothing. They are great cameras, go and get one anyway. Styling, 3, it's a Minolta. Again, it's not the coolest Minolta ever made, but I think it looks good. I particularly like the Rising Sun logo. Serviceability 1, if one of these breaks, you're pretty much out of luck. A lot of the stuff can't be repaired, and there are some things on this camera, like the light meter, which are just no longer working and will never work again. And status 2, it's not, it's not that cool. Lots of people are like, oh, I really want a Minolta, but it doesn't matter. Don't care. I gave it a 2, but it doesn't matter. So let's see how my dad cam did. The Minolta XG-1 range, we got 5. Build quality, we got 5. Usability 7. Price, we got 5. Styling 3. Serviceability 1. Status 2. That gives us a total of 28 points, which is a pretty solid performance for such a basic camera. Well done, Minolta. You did me proud. Next up is another camera which we don't currently have, but we've covered on a review on the site. and that is the Contarex, in particular the Contarex Bullseye. Beautifully styled camera, big, hefty beast of a camera with absolutely amazing lenses. Kind of difficult to use, but you know, just one of these iconic cameras. So let's get into the scoring for this one. Range. Now I'm going to give range 4. The reason for that being is because the lenses are hard to find in working condition. They had aluminium barrels, or aluminum, for you Americans, barrels, and they would fuse when the grease would wear out, so a lot of the lenses became inoperable, and the only grease that they could use was from cattle shin bones, bizarrely enough, until a modern synthetic replica came along. So they are hard to find, there's not a lot of range out there, there's not a lot of parts out there. 4. Build quality. 8. This thing is built like it's hefted out of a huge solid piece of metal. It's just been carved out of it. It is a tough camera. Usability. 4. You have got to learn how to use this thing to get it right, but once you do, the results are amazing because of that glass. But it does take a bit of a learning curve to get using one of those cameras. Price. 3. Prices have been going up because they're becoming more collectible. As they become older, the glass becomes more sought after. Styling. 3. It's funky looking, man. I mean, the big old light meter on the top, it is a funky looking camera, so I gave it a 3. Serviceability. 2. Getting harder to service. Not as many places will fix them now, and it is going to cost you a fair amount of money to have it serviced. And status. 2. Most people have no idea what it is. I mean, it's not a cool camera, it's a very serious camera. It's a very Prussian camera. So, let's see where we did on the scores for the Contarex. Range, we got 4. Build quality, we got 8. Usability, we got 4. Price, 3. Styling, 3. Serviceability, a 2. Status, a 2. And that brings us for a grand total of 26 points. Pretty solid performance from the Contarex. Not quite as good as the dad cam though. Well done, Contarex. Next up, we have the Pentax LX. We don't currently have one, but we have done a video on them before. You can have a look up there, which is really great. Perhaps the ultimate Pentax SLR, extremely capable, very easy to use, comes in a lovely tiny package. It's got great features on it. Does have some points on it that aren't so wonderful, so let's get into it. Let's see what the scoring is. Range, I went for 7 on this. It has got a great range of legacy lenses, but also other lenses, non-Pentax, that can be used on that mount because it's a universal mount. It's got a lot of accessories, but it doesn't have everything, so it's got a range of 7. Build quality, 6. It was very well made at the time. It's a pretty solid camera, but it's starting to show its age now. There are some issues with loading, and winding can break, and if that's broken, you're in a bit of trouble. Usability, it got 7 points. It is a very capable, very usable camera. It fits into your hand easy, it's small, you can take pictures with it well. It is a 7. Price-wise, 3. Prices are getting up there for this. It's quite surprisingly expensive for such a camera. Styling, I gave it a 3. It's a Pentax, it's not going to set the world on fire, it still looks relatively cool. Leather can peel off though, which kind of sucks. And serviceability, 2. There are a lot of things that can be serviced on it, but some of the things that break on it cannot be fixed. Once they break, that's it. You are out of luck, so you could be left with a paperweight. You have to be aware of that. And status, we're going to give it 2. It's cool, but is it up there cool? Oh, I don't think so. So it's a 2. So let's top them up, see where we go with the Pentax LX. We have range of 7, build quality 6, we have usability of 7, price of 3, styling of 3, serviceability at 2, and a status of 2, which brings us in for a grand total of 30 points. A very solid performance from the Pentax. Well done. And the final camera on our list today is one that we do actually have. In fact, I have. This is my very own camera. This is a Nikon FE2. Sometimes known as the poor man's FM3A because it has many of the features that you will find on the FM3A, not all of them, but many, except it comes in at about a quarter of the price. Brilliant stuff. So let's get started. Let's see where the points go for this camera. Range, it's got that amazing Nikon range. It's got all of those lenses, accessories. It's got 9 points for that, of course. Build quality 7. This is a very solidly made camera, considering it wasn't a pro camera. This one I had serviced 10 years ago and it's still going strong without an issue. Usability 7. You can see the lineage, the FM3A on this. It's got the same functions. It's easy to use. It fits in the hands. Everything is where you need it. Easy to use camera. Usability is 7. Price 4. These are still inexpensive. People haven't really latched onto them that much. The prices are going up, but prices for everything are going up. They're still very reasonable. Styling 3. Could be a bit cooler, but it's a bit of red on there or something, but it's okay. It's there. Serviceability 2, and that is because some things can be serviced on this, but there are a few things that can't, like the light meter, and if they go, you're pretty much out of luck. Status 2. It's not as cool as some of the other Nikons, so it falls a bit on those points. Still cool, just not quite as cool as some of the others. So let's top them up, see where we go with the FE2. Range, we have 9 points. Build quality 7, usability 7, price 4, styling 3, serviceability 2, and status 2. And that gives us a total, somewhat surprisingly, of 34, which is a really stellar performance from this little camera. Very proud of you, FE2. Good job. Okay, that was a load of fun. We graded all of the cameras and now we've got the marks. We know what we're going to do, so we've got to count down from 10 to number 1 to see who wins or which camera wins. Okay, in 10th place we had the Contarex with a reasonable 26 points. Following that, 9th place, the R8, which I thought would give a better performance, but there you go, them's the breaks, that's how it worked out. Now, in 8th place we had the Minolta, the XG-1. Good work, little fella, well done. For 7th and 6th place we actually had a tie. The Contax Aria and the Pentax LX both got 30 points. Now, I am going to say that the Contax Aria edges this one slightly because of its usability and its shutter speeds. So 7th place will be the Pentax LX and 6th place will be the Contax Aria, both with 30 points. Well done, very respectable performances. Now 5th place, the Nikon F6, a good showing from a solid camera, well done. 4th place we had, and this was a surprise to me, the Nikon FE2 in 4th place. This knocked some of the big boys out of the park. Well done. Okay, now for 2nd and 3rd place we had another tiebreaker, and this one's interesting. The Hasselblad 501cm and the Nikon FM3A, both of which are pinnacle cameras for their respective makers. The FM3A being the showcase of the mechanical abilities of their cameras, and the 501cm being the same thing for Hasselblad. So how do we grade these? I'm going to surprise people. I'm going to say that the Hasselblad just inches this one slightly, and that was because it was such a joy to use. It's such a nice camera to use. I absolutely fell in love with it. So for me, in 3rd place comes the Nikon FM3A, and in 2nd place comes the Hasselblad 501cm, both with 40 points, but it just pips it to the post. And in 1st place, completely unsurprisingly, in this totally unbiased, of course, top 10, the Nikon F3, my favourite SLR of all time, and you betcha it did it. Well done, F3, good job. Thanks, as always, for watching. I would love to hear what your favourite SLRs are. Please make sure you mention them down in the comments. Love to know what you're thinking. Like and subscribe. Please come and check out the website, japancamera-hunter.com, and make sure you have a very nice Christmas. Until next year, keep on shooting film.